everyone, I'm Roberto Kosha, a QA engineer, and in today's video we're gonna discuss about an introduction to Playwright and hands-on practice on automation testing with Playwright and the use of AI that we can have to speed up and make more performant the job of a QA automation engineer. So first of all, Playwright is a framework used that is becoming more and more popular. Probably now became the most popular framework for automation testing. And having worked for over 6 years in automation testing, I really personally noticed how this framework is less flaky and faster than the others, contenders, which are Cypress and Selenium. If I would have to classify them, I would say Playwright first. Cypress and Selenium are nearly in the same position, but I would say Cypress second and Selenium third. Selenium is around for a really long time by now, and is very solid, which is also positive. Has a very good community. If you want to start with automation, I advise you strongly just to save in your browser the link of the Playwright documentation. So I left some link here, as you can see, where one is the documentation of Playwright and the second is ChatGPT. As we know today, with the fast-moving world, AI is fundamental, very important to have in your background to write better and more performant code with the Playwright. I'm putting here ChatGPT, but there are different tools, different scenarios. You could use AI to improve and make a better decision with the automation testing. Some prerequisite, you must know this at a medium level, I would say, basic or medium level, or TypeScript at a medium level. So very important fundamentals of JavaScript or TypeScript. We will use TypeScript here, and the concept of classes, the concept of objects, inheritance. This is the fundamental one that you should know. Then another thing that you should learn next after this course, we will not cover it, but obviously if you work in a team and you want to push the code in a version control, you want to save your code so that other developer, other QA automation engineer can work on other automation tests, then you should push the code in a repository. GitHub is an example of that. You should then learn how to use GitHub, how to work, and which are the most important commands which are used in a team. Potentially, you can also use a UI interface to run those commands. That it really doesn't matter. The important that you know how to use GitHub. I would recommend to learn how to use the most important command in the command line of how to save code, commit it, push it, pull, fetch data, fetch the repository, etc. So moving next. First of all, in order to be able to work on automation test, you should do some downloads. For example, you need to download an IDE, which is Visual Studio Code. Then you should install some extension such as the Playwright extension and the TypeScript or JavaScript in case you use JavaScript for the automation test. We will use TypeScript, so I wrote TypeScript. You should create a new folder in your desktop or anywhere. Open VS Code into that folder. Don't worry, we will see this step by step. Then you should set up the project. We should set it up. We're running some commands, and we will also understand what the meaning of the files are. And then we will run our first test in Playwright. Potentially we might finish here, or we might introduce a little bit the concept of some best practices and also the concept of page object model, which is very important. To start, we can start going to the website where we can download the Visual Studio Code, which is one of the IDE. You can choose any one. I just use it personally. So and it's one of the most commonly used. Visual Studio Code. And you can either download keep clicking there, or you can simply go to the website and click download, and then download the Windows one in case you have Windows, or the Mac one in case you have Mac, and that's it. Then install it. I already did it, so I don't have to do it. It's very simple process, and you will get to Visual Studio Code. So once you download Visual Studio Code and installed it, you open it, you will see a screen similar to this. You will not have all the extension I have. You will have probably only 4 or 5 initially, but this is the screen you will see. Once you have Visual Studio Code, you have to create a folder in your desktop or anywhere you wish, and then you can go to File, Open Folder, and in this case I decided to open the folder test PV, select folder, and you will have, I was saying, Visual Studio Code is the IDE, and it should open a folder that should create in your desktop inside VS Code in the way I shown you. So I go to File, Open Folder, and you open the folder. In my case was test PV. You will have to do some installation, some probably in your PC, depending on what you need to use. But generally, you would have, if you go to terminal, click new terminal, you would be able to run the commands to create your first project in Playwright. Before running those commands, you will need to install Node to your PC, because you will need probably to use the documentation to check those commands. And as you can see in the documentation, depending on which programming language you want to use to run the automation test, you can choose if to use Node with npm, yarn, npm or pnpm. In my case, in this video, we're using npm, so you will need to install Node in order to use npm. So first of all, go to the website. So you go to the Node website, and you can click here, and in case you have Windows, you will download, and then once download, you will install Node. I already have it, so I will not do it, but you can go ahead and follow your operative system. And if it's 64 or 86, you can see that on your PC. So once you did that, you will be able to run the command npm -v, and you will see the version of npm that will display in the command line. So you can go either to VS Code, or if you click GMD, if you digit GMD, here you can write node -v, npm -v, and you should see something like this with the version you installed. Now you are able to run the commands of npm to install Playwright. So let's go back to VS Code. As you can see, because we opened the folder, specific folder we created, we are already in the path of where we need to work, which is great. Now you can run, looking at the documentation, the command npm init playwright latest. So go to VS Code and run this command and follow the guide. So proceed, yes. You can choose the language, where you're choosing TypeScript. So click enter, where to put end-to-end test. You can press enter because it's the device test, which is fine. Add a GitHub workflow action, let's say no at the moment. You can set it up later. Install Playwright browser. Yes, you can do it. We run the command npx playwright install, and that's it. That's how we'll need to wait a few minutes, or depending on your PC power. Probably should not take long. In fact, it's almost finished. You will see now that we have different file, which is the package.json, which contains the dependencies that have been installed, which is the Playwright Test and the types node. So the TypeScript is here. We have the configuration file, that is the config file. You can delete the comments, you can clean it up. Here there is a setup, which is a basic setup, which will work automatically. But you might want to keep it at the beginning if you wish, because for example here is advising that the base URL which you need to set up is the local host. So if you run locally your test, your application, then you can use localhost. But it is likely that you might use different port, a different URL that you want to test. Maybe you want to test a link of an application that is online, so a browser. For example, the Playwright documentation, you can set the URL of the Playwright documentation if you want to test there. Base URL is basically the URL which will be memorized. It is also interesting here that you can see that you can give the possibility to Playwright to rerun the test if fails. I will not go in deep with this for the purpose of the video, but I want just to give you some important outline of things that you might need from here, how this file works. You can run test in parallel. If you set this to true, the test directory allows to show which directory will be run when you run the test automatically. So the test file, if you run the command npx Playwright Test, we run anything that starts from this directory. You might want to select the reporter in form of HTML to check a report and view the report in a HTML format. You can select project, so to run in Chromium, so in Chrome, in Firefox, or in Edge, or in Safari. There are some setup here or you might want to run the test in a phone, and then here I advise you how to do that. You can set your phone, and you can check in the documentation which are the phones that are supported. And that's it. For the sake of this video, I don't need these informations. And the base URL, I will not set it, but you can set it in your project. If you do the command that allow you to go to page go to, without the base URL, you can set just the entire URL here. If you have the base URL set up, then here you can just set, for example, in this case, if you set http://playwright.com/, then in that case the base URL was that. Here you can set up this simply as deleting all this part, and with to do MVC only will automatically communicate Playwright the test file with the config file and do that without you know it. So that's it. Just to know that this is used to configure your test. Be careful in changing things here. Be aware of what the changes you do. Check the documentation, because if you make a mistake here, it will fail all your test will not run. Make sure to check what is the problem, and if you have bugs, you can always check with the ChatGPT to understand what's happening. For example, here there is an error. What is the error? You can, if you have a GitHub Copilot, click quick fix, and they will find out probably there is a comma more or some very simple issue. Some parentheses which by mistake I deleted when I was deleting the comments. Otherwise, you can go to ChatGPT and do the same, copy paste this and ask for what is the issue, and it will probably give you the solution, which saves you time. So that's why use ChatGPT when it's useful. Don't over rely on it, because it's important you to know anyway the basics of automation testing, and then you can save serialization. Now, when you start, in brief, just be careful when you make those changes. Make sure to check the documentation before making any change. Just leave it like as it is at the beginning, so that you can move on and practice with automation test. But don't do anything here otherwise, or contact a senior automation tester to put hands on here, not as a junior, because you need to understand what everything does. It's not difficult, but simply go step by step. As you see, when we ran the command npx playwright init as shown you before, this file was created automatically. So we have a demo file with an example of a test. Now we can run the test automatically. How do we do that? You can go to terminal and you can run the command npx playwright test. If you run this command, automatically Playwright from the config file, which I shown you before, will detect any test that is inside the tests file, and it will run it. Here we have, it's here the test. This is the test that we had here, and it was run. And we have 6 passed tests. This test that was written as an example was set up to pass. But if you change something, for example, remove that T and rerun it, so rerun the same command, npx playwright test, you will see that it will fail. It passed because here actually we said that anything above after age is fine. Instead, let's say that we want to check only this word and we run it, it will fail. And it will also tell you which line it failed. And in this moment, automatically Playwright configured to show you already a report of the result as HTML. You can see where X is, where it failed, and can debug and understand where the problem is. As you can see here, it's not finding this word because it's called playwright, not playwright without the T. So here we go. This way you were able to run your first automation test. But you might not want to run this test. You might want to run something else. And this will set us up to start talking about another topic. First of all, let's put back as it was. Playwright / helps to check anything that has playwright word in between. You save. And this way it will pass again if you run it. So let's go back to our slide. We did the following. We downloaded Visual Studio Code. We didn't install the extension of Playwright. So some of you might try to write tests and might have noticed that in VS Code, if I write something like test, or you see that I have already some advices showing here. You can see that this command is known by VS Code. How that is happening? You have to install few extensions in VS Code, which are very important, which are Playwright, download and install. I already did it. Here it should be bottom install, Microsoft one. And then once you finish, go again and install TypeScript. JavaScript and TypeScript nightly, that's the one I have. You can install it. I'm upgrading it. They did some upgrade. Always from Microsoft. And then you're set up. So then next, create a new folder. We did it and we open it with the Visual Studio Code. Project setup and understanding file. I've shown you about files. The node module was the one installed at the beginning to create. Is something that should be there when you install the first time Playwright. If you don't have it, then it will not. You will not be able to run the npm commands to run the test. So we did it launching the command at the beginning that we set at the beginning. Then we have the Playwright report. Here is stored the file that you've seen, the HTML file that was run after the test failed. You can also open with live server, so you can go to extension and also download another extension called live server, this one, which will allow you to right click and find this option in VS Code. Open with live server, and it will launch the file that we already seen. Now we have test result, so we have the result under different files, JSON file. Basically, this is the same result file with the part that failed, the line of code that failed. You can have different formats, HTML, JSON, ML, in different formats as you set up in your config file. That's why config file of Playwright is important. And the test file where the tests are run. Then what else? That's it. Once you set up Playwright, which we did, you need to do the scaffolding. What is the scaffolding? Basically, you need to organize the folders of your project in the best way that your company wish, but following some best practices. Let's say that anything that is a test, you can set and you can put inside test. Some companies like to put a folder inside it called end-to-end. For example, we can do it right now. New folder. End-to-end. Inside this folder, you can insert all the tests you want to create. You might want even to create subfolders. For example, I don't know, you have an application regarding a financial company. You want to divide different part of the application, different modules in different folders. And inside each folder, the test related to that module. You can do that. So I advise you at least to have test end-to-end, and inside that to create any folder related to each module of your application. For example, module 1, I'm saying module 1. Use good name convention, first of all, not this. Write module, I don't know, login module, then right click, new folder. You can create a final transaction module. Oops, I didn't put in the right place. You can right click a new folder from the end-to-end, or you can move this to end-to-end and move. So it will be in the same order inside the end-to-end. You can do anything here. Then you can also create from the directory. So right click, new folder, or you can click here, the folder, and create a file called, sorry, not here, inside end-to-end. You could create a folder, not in end-to-end, sorry, in test, you can create a folder called common. Here you can insert different folders. You can divide this into API in utils. If you want to reuse specific snippets about the code, you can add fixtures. You can add anything that you might reuse in the application. That some specific data that you can also put inside fixture, but depending how you handle the data, any company will have their own specific scenario. But even lean scaffolding, where in test you have a common, where you set up the code that you will reuse in the application, and end-to-end you just focus on the test that you will run. You can do that. And that's it. In terms of scaffolding, you can be creative, basic, based on the company needs, but you don't have to overdo it. You just have to make reasonable choices. Next, best practices. Let's start with the really important bit. There are some actions which we will see, which we'll dive soon, which are very important to follow. First of all, the use of selectors. So I will start saying this, then I will show you, but I want you to have a general panoramic first. The use is important to select first type of selectors such as getByRole, getByText, getByD, getByClass. Basically, order in which you should focus on searching attribute should be this. Should start from getByText and getByRole. If you can't select a locator by those locators, then you can move to other locators such as getByD, getByClass, search the locator itself, and many other locators. To leverage custom attribute like data.id, so basically if you have a situation in which you can't access the code with in the first step I shown you, you could also insert a data.test.id attribute. You could ask the developer to do it, you could do yourself if your company allow you to get access to the code. But you can add in the HTML, in the code, not necessarily HTML, depends, it can be React code, they can add basically attribute of the data test ID in the front end so that you can access it uniquely. Because the important is that every locator should be unique. You don't want to have a locator that is shared by 30 positions in your web page. And you would like to avoid the use of complex CSS and XPath because it's not you can use them. It should be really the last stage and it should first check to do the first two steps. And only if both are not totally possible, then consider that exists also this solution, but shouldn't be used. And do weight and timing. You should use the auto weighting of Playwright. You shouldn't use the implicit weight. You should use the explicit weight. So basically there are some commands which will you should use explicit weight methods, not implicit weight methods. They are very discouraged to use the implicit one unless extreme situation, but shouldn't. There always other solutions, but you should use almost always explicit weight methods. So discourage strongly to use implicit method. and use session API that include built-in waiting. So use the expect method to for the waiting to ensure that something is working as expected. So returning to the code, let's start from scratch. Let's say we want to create a new file, which we call it in end-to-end test. We call it. We don't use this folder because obviously I invented them. You can, for the moment, I will delete them. It was just to make you learn about a bit of scaffolding procedures. So inside end-to-end, I will call the file example2 with .spec.ts. Always add .spec.ts, otherwise we will not run the test. Now, first of all, import Playwright as in here, test expect from Playwright Test. And then you can launch the command test to run the test. You can add the name of the test, what it is about, for example, to navigate into the Playwright docs. Then, because Playwright works asynchronously, so that when finish one test, then it starts to launch the next method, you need to add async here, and you need to add the page which allow to use the command, the Playwright commands. So under these brackets, like page, and then return the test. So make sure that you write like this. Now here you will write the test. So for example, if you want to navigate the page fixture, allow you to use Playwright methods. If you want to go, for example, to a page, you can use page.goto, and here is already advising Playwright dev. You can double check if the website is correct, and it is doc intro. Let's go here. So let's go back. We substitute this with this. Because we didn't use the base URL, we can put here the entire URL. Now, what else you want to do? Let's say that you want to click to an item. I want to click to yarn, or yes, how to install Playwright. You want to click here. So what you can do, as I already said with the best practice, let's continue. Let's go to the page. So let's define some actions that we want to perform. Let's say that we want to click to yarn. Then we want to check that the text shown is this. And then we want to click what's installed. Then click to the search and digit something like documentation about the expect presenter. Something simple. So let's move back to this code and let's write some comment. So click to yarn, verify that the text is shown. Which text and what's this text? We can see that that is visible. We can insert that. Verify that the text is shown. Then we said click to what's installed, link, assert the title. Here is interesting because we have 2 times what's installed. Then we click to the search and we search for expect. Let's write that. So how would we go about it? And first of all, how would we tackle the problem of not knowing the syntax? So the solution to this are 2. One is to go to the documentation and search to Google documentation. Another method is ChatGPT. So this is how you can leverage AI and to understand the syntax. That can be pretty effective to give a result. Third, you can use another feature, which is the recorded session. So let's start with the first method, which is the one which everybody uses, that can be optimized, but everybody should learn how to use. So let's say they want to click to yarn. So what you do is to go to the page. Let's return where we were. How can you check what this selector is? First of all, you can inspect. You can click to this icon, and once you find what you need, you can click. Now you can see that this element contains, which is as a role, or as we see in getByText is the most efficient. So we can simply getByText. So method 2 This is method 1. Method 2, you can go to ChatGPT. You can simply ask how to click a text, an element with text yarn. ChatGPT is very good at giving you a response. Can you use this response? Not necessarily that response might be correct, but it likely is. I think I didn't say here. I didn't specify Playwright. Can you do it in Playwright? So always remember that to give prompting, to give a good context is important when you talk to AI, and also that the AI can hallucinate. Like in this case, to be honest, give a solution, but it is not the most optimal one. This is an example of a response. But what you can do is to write a better prompt. So how to take the text locator in Playwright using the best practice. And you can also give a link of the documentation, following the documentation. And let's see what response we get. As you can see, writing a better prompt, we get a good response. It's exactly the way you would use. So remember, because in Playwright the basic use asynchronous methods, and you remember when we called the async in the test, inside the test, you need to write before any syntax the word await. If you don't, the test will fail. So remember always to write await, and then the way you take a locator is page.getByText, and then you take yarn. And as a second thing, the action is to click to that element. So here is creating a constant with the word getByText, and then it uses to and click on it. So let's go and do it. So await, we forgot before to put await here. It's important. Await page.getByText. Suggest GitHub Copilot. In my case, if you don't have it, don't worry. You can pay it €10 per month, or you just check the documentation. At the beginning, it's better you don't follow the AI. Better you learn yourself. In future, it's good to speed up the process. So this was an example how to use AI to help you in a faster way to get by and learn the syntax. So this was the action. But before clicking to play, we were saying that we set up const, which is equal to. So we got the text yarn. We created the variable which contained that locator, and we are clicking to it. Obviously, we can now substitute all this with yarn text. Secondly, verify that the text yarn playwright is shown. First of all, you can do, in this case, we're getting by text, right? So probably we already know that there is a text. If you want to check, once you click, there is yarn Playwright Test. Let's see first the application. We want to assert that this exists. So we could copy this text and get by text, or we can inspect. We can check this code block. We could check by this class to contain text, or we can simply, using the best practice, we will just do a get by text to contain text. So let's go back to the code. And we do await page get by text, iterate advised, and when we want to expect and insert something, we can add before the page the word expect, open parentheses and close in the end, and then to contain text. So because we've seen in the page that yarn and create playwright, they are separately, to be sure that it check correctly, I will just put slashes to identify that anything that is before and after is fine. So create playwright. Let's see the test again. Yarn create playwright. So I made a mistake because obviously we need to, this was yarn create playwright, and here we want just to check yarn create playwright. This will check the text create playwright, and anything before and after is fine. The important that there is create playwright. We can either run the test or continue, but what I want you to see here is that with page you can run different method, the get by text, and you to get the locator by text. You can, but there are also other, which is, for example, if you're going to get by role. Before we saw before with inspection that we can check the role of an element. For example, we can check for a span role span which contain text create playwright. So get by role span, and as you can see, it already advised that you can add the name. So a span that contains this name. Here there is a text. Let's fix it. Let's see what AI can help us. It tells that it gives this solution. It basically advises to use locator for not label more for a role or when you have a role tag. So you can simply get by text in this case, but in general you can get by role if there is a role. For example, here we have role but tab panel. If you want to get this element, get by role tab panel with the name, whatever is the name, tab panel, and the name. So in this case there is no error because you're getting by the role. You can also do page by get by data test ID. You can get by label, as you can see, by placeholder, by role, by title. You can also the locator to identify span and CSS in general. You can use the many ways. You can learn the syntax with the documentation, with the ChatGPT start. This is how you can proceed with familiar with the syntax. I advise you to write a couple of tests. Doing practice will stick and help you to familiarize as soon as possible. And yes, that's it. Now let's continue with running this test. So first of all, we click to yarn, then we check the text is correct. Then you can click to the installed link. You can click on the icon and then go to installed to view. So this is just to show you. This is the element. You could get by locator A, but best practice here again say that you should use get by text locator. So we will do that. Copy paste. The link was called what's installed. You need to use the double quote here. What's installed dot click. Remember that you can use different actions, not only the click, but you can perform double click, drag to, evaluate, all these actions. Hover, click, up, text content, select option. Basically all this you can use here. In this case it's a click and check the text. You can always get by text. For lack of time I will not continue. You can continue to perform these actions. Basically the locator you can get from the inspection and view them from here to understand if to use the locator, to use a class, which is not advisable. If you want to get by text, as it is the case, if you can get by role, if you can get any element will have their own. In this case we have a role of tab, you might have a label, you might have different CSS available to access items. Another way you can access item, which is very cool and fun, is to, if you install the testing extension, once you install this, which you should have done, you should get this icon. Now, if you can either record a new test or record that cursor. So if you click somewhere like here in the test and then record a new, you record a new test. As you can see, that we have a new page. But we want to record to the same, so we select record at cursor. Whatever action you will do here, for example, going to the Playwright website, what we said, to click yarn, you can assert text, you can assert this text, you can click what's installed, you can click to search, you can digit click, select and click here, and assert, you can assert the visibility of this element, let's say. Now, if you go back here, it automatically, using most of the time the best practice, the test in one click. Obviously, in some cases like this, not necessarily it created the best practice because it took by locator the element. We need definitely to check, following the slides, the recommendation, the best practice. So to see if we can get the element by text, by locator, by role, by label, etc. This is really the last stage of taking the element by class or by XPath. But we see that it made our job much faster and likely accurate. If we delete the previous text and run this, so you click to test end-to-end example and click play, we see the result of the test and it passed. So in few words, experiment the syntax with the documentation, use ChatGPT to speed up and understanding how to perform certain action that you don't know how to do. If you would like to see the documentation, even though it's the best thing to do, but to speed you up in some situation can help. Don't rely on ChatGPT on the locator because the locator might be different and in the web application. Use the recording to help you lay out the first part of the test, but by experience you might have to modify that again using the best practice. And in the end, you might want to perform a specific action, make the test more readable. Reading the test like this might not be easily understandable by other stakeholders. You could divide the test by section. For example, here we are navigating to an item. Inside the test, you can use test.step and you can order everything and put inside each step to their own place and so on. You can copy this and you can perform, for example, in this case, you are clicking and checking the text is correct. You can cut and paste here and you can here write navigate to Playwright documentation, or you can here you can say click to yarn and verify the text is correct. Basically, you can order the test in a way that is more readable to other stakeholders. And it's not finished here. You can make even better adjustment. You can use the POM file. So in common, you could create a new folder called inside POM. You can create a file called, for example, if you're working in a module, specific module, you can call the name of the module payment page. But yes, and here you need to import Playwright page and expect from Playwright Test class payment page. Here generally the classes I should have the capital letter for the first character. Okay, it advised to load. This is with the capital letter the page, so because you need to call it, you can call it inside the constructor, the page, and use inside the class. Here you need to use this because we are inside the class. Obviously these are not correct, but the point is that you can use a method navigate inside payment page, and you could use this. You can move it from here to the page object model like this, and now you could use the inside the test. You could first you need to import that page from the correct file. Make sure that this is correct, otherwise you yes page. Make sure the path is correct, otherwise it will not work. Home.payment page. This should work. Let's see. ChatGPT will say what was the mistake. I should export. Let's see what I've done. Export. Here we go. That was the case. Now I should be able to. I think I simply should close and reopen this code to work. Sometimes it's the case because here I have a payment which is capital letter. Instead it wanted not capital letter. So here we set the navigation method. This allows us, once you export here, that we can call the payment page right away, substituting to the navigation itself. So not sure why I deleted here before that step. Navigate. So I generally call each a step for each action, because then when you run the test and you see the results, you can see if there is an error, where it belongs. And that helps a lot in making faster the debugging process. But in general, now, as you can see, you can call payment page dot navigate to payment page. This will be much more readable than before, especially if you have a lot of methods. You can read in English manner all the tests and they can be more understandable, especially if you don't use solutions like Cucumber or Gherkin that allow to write tests in a way which are more readable for stakeholders. This is another solution you could use to make more readable your test. That's it. Let's see what is left. We viewed the page object model. What to learn next? You should make more experience, practicing scenarios and go back and forth with documentation. Use the AI, don't be afraid to use AI to speed you up on the learning in asking how to click how to hover an element. ChatGPT can give you faster responses. Learning how and when to use fixture, will not cover this now. Start making tests not relying on data. So it's important at the beginning to make sure that, let's say, if you are adding an element in a to-do list, make sure to not rely on data, in a sense that once you delete it in the end, that element, so that when you restart the test, you don't have that element. So make sure to delete the elements before restarting again the process of login, creation of a new to-do list. Make sure that the tests don't rely on data in the first place. And then if tests need to rely on data, but you can separate them and the logic of the test. It's important to understand this. For now, it's not important is to gain confidence with Playwright, how it works, and to run as many tests as possible. Another thing to tell you is that in VS Code, you can run the test in different ways. One is the one I showed you. You can run from here to end to find your test and click play, and it runs like this. But maybe you want to run in a format that you can view each step. You can do npx playwright test spec, and you can add your test path, which is this one. Copy relative path and add --UI. This allows you to run in time traveling mode test, or you can run in headed if you want to run the browser, or headless mode, which was already running before. If you run this, probably you need to make sure that slashes are in the opposite direction. npx, probably here you need to use npm because we had an npm run playwright test. So you can run this command. This works, launch all the tests that you have available in the directory in the config file, which means you can run the same thing in UI mode. And this is the interface. You can run the test from here, and you can see while it runs the result and use the time traveling mode to then debug the test. In the meantime that it runs. Then, if you work in a team, you might have to use a tool like Jira or an X-Ray where the tests are documented. If you don't use it, don't worry for now, but in a team you will work. Most of companies use a tool to document the test, and based on those tests, on the manual tests, they write automation tests. So consider to have a look how this works, because you in the early team use these tools to document tests and steps, and to use those then to implement the test automatically. You might have to document the coverage so that you know what you've done versus what you have to automate. And consider to use tools like Cucumber, Gherkin, in case you want to other way in a more structured way to write tests that are understood by stakeholders. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to support me, this channel, and to write more content like this, more practical, more hands-on. This was a basic tutorial on how to get started with Playwright. We created the test, we ran it, we created a page object model, very basic. But that's how we get started. We said that how to get confident with the syntax, with the ChatGPT, and with the documentation. And starting from this, you could write tests that are more complex, and you can debug them with the way we shown. You use the -UI character when you run the test to run the way I shown. and you will see that if test fail, like in this case, you can view where it failed. It immediately failed. It didn't go to any page, and we can check that why this happened. First of all, we can check which test we run. Navigate into the Playwright docs, which means that was, and the error was in 9 row, so it was here, definitely here. Navigate to payment page. There was an error here. First of all, I didn't save. Probably that was the reason why it failed. Let's relaunch it. I made the change without saving, and it passed. Now you can see here how the test was run, step by step, and you can see each step action before and after. You can select any selector from here if you need to debug. You can move, you can time travel, all within Playwright. It's not that amazing. Again, consider to subscribe the channel. I would really be grateful. This helps this channel to grow and to increase the reach. And see you in the next video.